Welcome, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to Facebook Live on July 8th, 2020. Cannot believe it's July 8th already, that we almost had the whole year of 2020. The first 6 months are over. Today, we have Kelly with us. He is a Qigong master. I'm sure a lot of you have gotten familiar with Kelly being on the panel. And as always, we have Eileen, our wonderful moderator. Good afternoon. How do you all want to get started today, Kelly? Do you have anything that comes up that you want to discuss? I know last time we were talking about you had some children that you were talking about that you had that
Oh,
had come into your life that were a grace and a blessing. So I'll let
uh,
you speak
my,
about
my
that.
my
Thank
business
you.
partner has 4 kids, and because of COVID and her house being damaged in a storm, and then the insurance company finding asbestos in her house, and her and the kids needing a place to stay, and me having enough room, and then COVID happened right after that. Uh, there's sort of been a lot of growing pains happening. I myself, I have no kids. I've been married and divorced, and the learning experience of having younger minds, or less aware or less emotionally present minds, and growing into that kind of emotional awareness has been a very profound learning experience. Interacting with uh, these kids who range from like age 22 to 19 to 15 and 14. There's a whole range of processes that they go through, that my business partner and I, given that we are working on Qigong classes and building an online archive of the work that I do. And we're finally sort of working through the meditations that I've been recording, because the translation and the automatic captions, I upload them to Udemy, but the automatic captions algorithm kind of really doesn't work very well. It's not very good. So we have to go through and edit everything. And that's sort of like, the collaborative work that we're doing. We've written a couple plays and some other things together. So we're working at understanding how my partner, her name is also Kelly as well. So Kelly and I are learning how to work together collaboratively in a creative way. And also, given that we're spending so much time together and they're here, COVID, we're all sort of like learning how to cohabitate. And I'm very different than their dad. Um, there's been a lot of growing pains in terms of them learning that I'm different, that I'm much more conscious, and also learning how different I am in the way that I support them and give them space to grow and be themselves, and not throw expectations or assumptions into the mix. And learning how, watching them grow as I have, the last few years that Kelly and I have been working together and building the space for ourselves together, it has always thrown back at me, and highlighted how much work I've done, and also underscored and reminded me of how different I am in terms of my own personal perception of like where I was when I was a teenager, 14, 15, or even like in my 20s. How different I was. Like I was already doing qigong. I was already meditating when I was 12 and 13. And this is one of the reasons why my mom and dad supported me so much, is they figured, okay, well, he's doing this, so, and it's helping him. I have my asthma and my bronchitis, and it had made me healthier, and I no longer had my asthma and bronchitis. So my mom and dad were very supportive. So it was a very different dynamic that I had growing up at the ages that they are in, than they are currently going through. So there's a lot of contrast. And there have been moments where, they'll say something or they'll be expressing sort of their understanding of a process that they're going through with school. And I'll go, oh, right. I remember doing, I remember doing that. I remember having to go through that emotionally when I was a teenager. It's like, oh, wow. Like, it just, the difference in growth, the difference in perception of understanding where I am now and seeing them go through what I remember going through years and years ago has thrown into the mix a very constant inner reflection of all of the things that I've been through emotionally in the last 30 years, 35 years growing up. So yeah, by proxy, I've kind of become a father figure to this group of kids, and they're great, and it's been a wonderful experience. There are challenges. I mean, obviously, being present, being around young minds that do not have the same perspective that I do, and I recognize that I have a very refined perspective, a very practiced. I've got a lot of practice in, and seeing how they are growing into themselves has been very fascinating. I mean, there's so many different words that I could use, but the learning process is very profound. The reflection when I'm having a conversation, when I'm just listening, and they're asking me questions, and I'm just listening and waiting for them to, finish, and then they like start answering their own questions as to like what they should do or what they're processing through, and I just go, see, you had the information, you just needed to listen to yourself a little bit more, and it came to the surface. And that's been, the primary thing I do with them, and it's helped me refine my own ability at listening, and sort of also realize how much I enjoy supporting others and how much that means to me. I mean, I never thought that I would have kids in my life, to be perfectly honest. Even though I was married, it was one of the conversations that I had with my then wife and now my ex-wife, that I honestly did not know if I wanted kids at all. I did not feel it in me at the time. And we had conversations about that. And she, her pattern and her program was, no, we need to have the white picket fence, the kids, everything like that. And that was basically one of the deal breakers between the two of us, is like, we had very different things in our understandings of what we wanted out of life. And so to have, so technically I still do not have any kids, because these are not my children, but sort of having an instant family because of the process, the restoration to the house that Kelly needed, and then COVID-19 and schools being shut down, and then us having to, figure out how this is all going to work, has been a profound learning experience, and has helped me see how my monkey mind and my little shadow did manage to sort of sneak in that space of like, oh, well, no, we like our, our rigid control over our space, and like, how dare these people come into our space and like disrupt it and do all these things that we're not used to. And it's just like, okay, go get the bag of popcorn and start eating and watching the movie running in my head and going, wow, I did not know that was there. So that's the gift. That's the gift of like having the reflection of having this unexpected, sequence of events, and then being in this space where I have these people that I am learning from just by observing the interactions and what my own monkey mind tries to do, because it seems to have nothing better to do or nothing else to use for ammo than my interactions with, Kelly and her kids, and the building process that we're doing creatively, writing and doing video work and editing and stuff like that. So yeah, by proxy, I've ended up with a family in my life, which is a wonderful thing. Again, learning, being able to share and support people when they are at specific thresholds, and to be able to hold my space, um, with them is a real beautiful thing. Is a real beautiful thing, and I feel very privileged and grateful that I have had this opportunity, because for the longest time, I know for the longest time I resisted the concept of having kids in my life, or children of any kind. And then the universe goes, guess what? We're gonna throw all this at you so that you can learn even more, so that you can grow even more, so that you can share, you can understand how to share even more. I was like, and there was, a brief pause where I could literally feel like that little bubble, or that little grasp of my monkey mind going, no, can't do it, can't do it. And I just like pop, and then realize it's like, oh yeah, no, we're good. This is, yeah, this will be cool. This will work. And I could feel like all the learning is like that was ahead of me, and that has happened even in the last few months. And it has very much deepened my appreciation for my practice. The challenges of maintaining my discipline and holding my space inside when I've either had a bad day because there's been so much pressure and so much activity, and not a bad day, just a very challenging, rough day where there's like not much time for anything, and everything is go 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 because I have all these things I need to do. Maintaining my discipline, and then again having to share my space with people that you know are young adults and are growing and are developing, has been a profound challenge, and it's been an incredible gift to be able to learn and deepen my own practice this way, and understand how strong I actually really am, and how my monkey mind tried to convince me that it wasn't something that I would be able to do if I ever had kids.
And I think you said last week that the greatest teacher they've been is to tell to show you that you're not a parent but a guide. You're more I wouldn't call it a friend, because friend becomes somebody that you can kind
Yeah,
of override, right?
yeah. Well, friends you can become codependent with, right?
Right. But
And
it's more like a guide instead of being a father figure, because they're old enough. If they were babies when they
yeah,
were
yeah,
brought
yeah,
to you,
yeah.
then you would surely be a father figure. But right now, because they're already kind of semi-grown, you have to be a guide more than, and that takes a different kind of parenting style. You cannot do the traditional parenting, right?
No, it's just like I literally have no authority as of like a dad. So there's none of that I can actually, use for leverage. And the point of fact, exactly what you said, Punam. For Father's Day, they actually gave me a Father's Day card that they made themselves, and it was literally thank you for not being our dad and not trying to be our dad. I was like, wow, okay. It's just like, it's like God, yeah, there's
That's a good compliment.
yeah, yeah, it was just like, really really hit me in the heart, and really sort of, again, right there, the evidence, they understand that I've been very that deliberate, that I've been that consciously working at not trying to be their dad, not trying to control them, not trying to assume, not trying to expect, but to just be there for support and as their guide. So yeah, that was very very emotional moment, and very touching to have that given to me on Father's Day. So, but again, it's just they recognize, they're that aware that they
Right.
recognize that I've been that conscious. So that was a beautiful moment.
Thank you. We have a question. Christina's here. Good evening, Christina.
Luis is here also.
Good evening, Louise. Thank you, Aline. Christina asks, all that creation, can it be now the juice for what you are manifesting with an energy that is permanently renewed? I think it's a statement more than, it's not a question, right? It's more a statement that all that creation, can it be, is in the now, the juice for what you are manifesting with an energy that is permanently renewed. The reason why I asked about your kids was, if you'll remember last week, Lynn was asking about bringing presence through relationships, right? And we were letting him know that what he needs to do is learn from that relationship. That relationship is pushing our button and telling us exactly where we need to grow, right? And the same can be with kids too, because kids, especially young, the 11-year-old, the 12-year-old that's just moving from that cusp of innocence to ego, right? Their ego is so strong that they'll kind of like butt heads with anybody that is not present centered.
If may I speak to what you just said about the shift from innocence to ego? I have a background in psychology from the University of Winnipeg. I never finished my degree. I got to the point where I realized how in university, everyone was repeating their patterns in university. Every teacher that I talked to was repeating and regurgitating their patterns, except for my humanistic psychology prof. He was really awesome. He was close to sort of a real Buddhist that I ever knew and connected with at that time. But my understanding and what I learned in psychology, and because I wanted to understand myself, and especially like being a teenager, being in high school, going from a country school to a high school in the city was a real challenge for me, because there's like so many more people and so many more people to deal with. Understanding the sequences of development in terms of the ego, especially because I was getting into Buddhism when I was a teenager, and I wanted to understand the psychological perspective on Buddhism and progression of the ego as an illusion. So I was doing a lot of research on that when I was a teenager in high school. And what I understand from my own personal experience of the arguments that I used to get into with my mom and dad when I was 11, 12, and 13, even though I was learning meditation and I was learning Qigong and I was beginning to develop a personal practice, watching how my ego would get triggered because it wanted control to build its own unique identity. You know, how like that move from innocence into sort of teenagerhood to, you know, on the road to adulthood really was a profound time in my life where I saw clearly, you know, I would have these arguments with my mom and dad, and then after like 5 or 10 minutes in my room, just sort of stewing by myself, I would start asking myself, what the heck was that about? Like, how did that just happen? We were like fine at dinner, and then like suddenly like this huge explosion, and we all scattered, and what the heck happened? So like there were a lot of developmental psychology stuff that I studied that itemized, yeah, that's sequence when you reach the age of logic, you know, younger or older than 8, depending on the space that you're in. And then the way that our egos are programmed to give us incentive or a desire to create our personal identity separate from the family unit and unique individuals. So you're absolutely right, Poonam. I totally agree with you. It's that sort of space of, you know, the ego wanting the control, and my own personal experience and of experiencing that and going through so much anger when I was a teenager, because I was in a situation where I was always, living outside the city, going to school, going to high school in the city. And I remember when I was a teenager, I felt, really angry that I didn't have a place in the city to stay, where I didn't have like an ability to stay connected with my friends that I was making in high school. So that space of ego development as a teenager was always causing friction for me and my parents, because I always wanted to do stuff, but I always had to come back home to the country. So I never felt like I was actually able to do what I wanted to do as a teenager. Except the irony is that I had this beautiful place out in the country where I could meditate and I could train and I could practice my qigong. And so a couple of years later I was going,
It was a
man,
blessing.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
It was
And just
great.
see how my ego did not want me to see that until like years later when I had that perspective. I'm going, wow, okay, sheesh, yep.
I wanted to bring that up, that relationships, and Louise says that, yes, relationships are our greatest teachers. I have to remind myself of that ever so often. And that is the enlightenment that we receive from the relationship, whether it's kids or family or our partner,
Yep.
because they will exactly show us what is the karmic pattern that is stuck in us.
Yep.
Right? If we have a self-esteem issue with looks, they'll
Yep.
ridicule us about our looks. They'll say, what kind of a shirt are you wearing? Or that dress is horrible. Not actually telling us that we are horrible. It's just that we are stuck with that pattern, that we are deriving a sense of self-esteem from our looks.
Yes.
The other thing is last week, Sujata was talking about visualization techniques. Like we were talking about conscious manifestation.
Mhm.
And she said she was asking, along with presence, what is needed, right? And we said, other than presence, that nothing else is needed. But there are techniques that support manifestation. One of them is affirmation, that you can affirm, and the second is visualization. Now, my experience with visualization is, if you put up a vision board, right? And every time you look at it and you say, I don't have the house, or let's say you want a Maserati, you want a car, huge house with expensive furniture, and you put pictures of it right on the vision board. A lot of what can happen is, when you look at the vision board, you can start focusing on, I don't have it.
Yep.
And when we say, I don't have, I don't have, I don't have, I don't have, and we hold that in our vibrational energy, then that is what we manifest, is the don't have. So never focus on the what isness of this present moment.
Yep.
So the way you have to visualize, and Eckhart in his module 2 of conscious manifestation course, which I will play during our group meditation on Friday, Eileen, is he, once he achieved like the 20 years that he spent, right, um, being on park benches and having whatever jobs, he went to a church, and he says in that church, on a piece of paper, he drew the sun in the middle, and he colored that paper as well. And then he said spiritual teachings, writing books, traveling the world, like whatever came to pass, right? Which is his power of now, and whatever he was doing after that. He asked for acceleration in that church, but what he says is, once he created that vision board, that visualization technique, right? He folded the paper and never saw it for the next 10, 15 years. So that's how you manifest, is you create your vision, but then forget about it, let go. I want you to speak to, what do you think, Kelly, about it? Eileen, if you want to give an input on it, but I think that pointer of his to let go is very, very important, because we can start saying that, oh, I need to write 15 books, or I want this music. But we start focusing on, I'm not creating the music, I'm not creating the music, I'm not creating the music. And then we are manifesting the not creation instead of the creation.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah. Speaking to manifestation, understanding how to observe and how to detach emotionally from something that we want to create, so that we're not creating from lack, from a focus on lack, is really important. Understanding how to have that discipline inside to keep us from losing that focus of detachment, of observation, of staying in observation, not letting our monkey mind getting us to worry about it, is really, really important. Being able to let go of any and all attachment to wanting or needing for emotional satisfaction or for personality and ego validation is really important to understand. It is, from my understanding, from what I've experienced, there are two ways to manifest energetically. The energies of manifestation are either mental projection or their heart-centered alignment. And holding that stillness for heart-centered alignment takes practice, takes discipline. And some people have, some people have an innate understanding of this and cannot necessarily express it into words. And you have people who have had experiences where they've done a dream board and then they've done exactly as you were describing, Punam, that Eckhart did, where he put it away and he stopped thinking about it. So he did not focus on any other connection other than that moment, that pure moment of creation. And understanding those pure moments of creation are really, really important. Being able to be mindful, and it's often really, really good to do a dream board and to have that space, and then to not focus on it, to make sure that you do not have other people's influences, such as their projections or their judgments or their fears, in your face, or throwing them at you, so that you can maintain that pure space of creation with detachment. Very, very important to understand. And yes, absolutely, you can get hooked into and hijacked by the monkey mind, getting into an internal conversation of worrying about what you don't have and worrying about how you're going to get there, instead of trusting and accepting.
Perfectly said. And that when you say heart centered, that is the presence power. That's where the inner beingness, the alignment, the high vibrational energy of inner beingness, we are aligned totally, and
Yep.
then we can manifest. But don't get attached to that. I will talk about one incident. I don't know if it was during School of Awakening. Kim Ing talks about um, there was one time in one of the events, like the event organizer, um, they reserved a hall of 3,000 people that could hold 3,000 or 4,000 people, right? And the event organizer goes, oh, not more than 1,500 people will come, right? Guess how many people came?
Right.
Just 1,000 people came. So Kim Ing was saying, what if the event organizer had said, I don't know how many people are going to come. I'm going to hold the event in a 4,000 setting auditorium or that, right? So the other pointer I got from that is, don't ever be specific.
Yeah.
Don't say, I'm going to sell about 1,000,000 books. What if you were supposed to sell 6,000,000 books? Louise is a writer that has been on a session with us, right? I would say never put a number to um, be very specific about, like, if you want to do, like what I see you doing is, maybe you have different qigong centers everywhere all throughout the world, right? So how are you going to, like, if you say I just want 10, right? That is limiting you to just 10. But if you say, I don't know, I'm going to be a vessel, I'm going to be an open vessel and let it come through, and I'm going to let the centers develop. I'm going to just offer myself as is. And I don't know if it's going to be one or it's going to be 1 million, how many ever centers it may be, but that's what I would see for you. There is a question, Kelly, over here. Hi, everyone. Dra says, during the day, I'm very anxious. I'm a doctor and a lot of worries about my autistic kid. My problem is lately, whenever I felt asleep and finally relaxed, I woke up with negative events. My kid chooses to do dangerous things just when I sleep, and many negative news comes to me just when I sleep. Someone will wake me up with negative events. I'll take a shot at it, and then you can speak to it, Kelly. What I would say is draw meditation right before you sleep is very important. And Aline, do you think Yoga Nidra helps? There is a meditation called Yoga Nidra, which is the sleep cycle, which brings you. Sacred Acoustics has a meditation called Sacred Lullaby. There are 3 or 4 different kinds of sleep meditations. So do a meditation right before you sleep. And what is happening to you is all throughout the day, because you are so much in mind activity, you are pushing down your emotions. And those emotions, after you go to bed, are just coming out. Maybe there's a voice in your head that says, oh, I don't know, I have an autistic kid. I don't know what's going to happen to the autistic kid. So all those are going through at the vibrational level in the back of your mind, right? It's those what I would call resistance patterns are coming up all throughout the day. You are not processing it, and so it comes up after you sleep. So what I would say is meditate throughout the day. Give like 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes, how much ever. You're a doctor, you're the president of a country, whoever you are, meditation or stillness is very, very important. And these spurts of stillness throughout the day. And that's why Eckhart says, look out the window, at least for 1 second. Look out the window and look at a tree, or take a few conscious breaths. So still yourself. And even with being a doctor, you would bring more healing to your patients if you bring that presence power to your patients than just mechanically like looking at a chart and diagnosing, oh, you have a heart disease, or you have this thing. You look at a chart, or you have these combination of things that according to my books it means this. You equate it and just write, within 3 minutes you've already diagnosed a strep throat or whatever that person has, right? Go ahead, Kelly. Thank you.
Excellently said, Punam. I absolutely agree with you. The process of working during the day, and this is one of the things that I learned being a policy analyst, working in front of email for 8, 9, 14 hours a day sometimes, and then coming home and having to decompress and or just go and teach class and then decompress takes a toll if you do not give yourself space to go inside and to practice connecting with yourself and checking in and giving yourself that space to process. Because oftentimes during the day, yeah, there are going to be stressors. There are going to be events that you're going to have to deal with that are challenging emotionally, that trigger us. I know, like, again, my own personal experience is like being in the office, answering phones, answering email, angry clients, dealing with, emergencies and stuff like that, and then having to come home and unwind. And for me, yeah, meditation, my qigong, my practice, sometimes just sitting or lying on my bed flat and having 5 minutes to just breathe and let the day go was often the biggest thing I ever did for myself through the entire day. And having taught autistic children, kids on the spectrum, the atypical spectrum, for I guess about 6 years. I was teaching them qigong, and because of COVID, we sort of had to stop the class. But my personal experience, understanding how much more sensitive people on the spectrum are to vibration, to the energy that you give out, you cannot stress how important it is to create a solid, safe, calm, emotional connection with someone who is on the autistic spectrum. Music. Punama, I loved your idea of the recorded meditation, the sounds. What was the website that you recommended?
Sacred Acoustics. We play it during group meditation too.
Right. I'm gonna try and be there on Friday because I want to experience that on Friday.
We would love to have you.
It'd be great to be there. I use
Very powerful.
background music in my guided meditations that I do on Sundays as well, and it changes everything. I often play music in the background when I teach qigong because, again, it helps a person feel. And I know for my class with the guys on the autistic spectrum, the tone of my words coming out, if I did not maintain the regular sort of banter and the regular type of pattern of expressing verbal interaction, some of them would, at first, because they were not used to it, they would get agitated. So I know for myself, from my experience, having that space, again, that calm space of fostering that calm space of connection with my group of guys on the spectrum really helped. If they were agitated at the beginning of the class, just sort of talking to them and having a conversation to let them know that everything was okay and that we were just going to do class now, and to get them to focus on the class and the focus on their bodies, really helped build a lot of momentum to them shifting gears themselves and their parents. You know, it was an absolute privilege to be able to have that kind of class and to share that kind of support with them. And again, like, taught me an awful lot as a teacher, as a person, as a man interacting with other young men. Being able to support that kind of space and that kind of connection is a really beautiful thing and should not be underestimated. It's such a simple thing to just have a simple conversation. Again, I am not familiar with this gentleman's child and how, you know, what part of the spectrum or what the situation is exactly. But I know that there has been a lot of research done. And once I started teaching this class, I did an awful lot of research on understanding interactions with people on the atypical spectrum. And it's absolutely fascinating. The level of intelligence and sensitivity that is present is remarkable. And a lot of the research has pointed to tone and inflection, and how music is especially beneficial to create bonds between parent and child on the atypical spectrum.
I think it's because we see a body.
Mhm.
There is a physical body, but each cell is an atom and a molecule, and each atom is vibrating, right? So Eckhart said that he got an feeling of this when he took LSD. Everything is vibrating, like it's going,
Yep.
it's vibrating, right?
Yep.
So sound is a very easy way to raise your vibrational frequency, because the rhythmic, it's like binaural helioplex, some kind of mix of sound.
Mhm.
So it really, the rhythm of it raises the vibrational frequency. I know Yindra actually told me, can you wait? We are so deep in meditation. Can you wait to speak right after the meditation? Because it really takes them to a deeper meditation. So I will give you, I'll give you the link to the site. You can try it even for your kid. Like let your kid listen to that sound,
Yeah.
and maybe that'll calm them down as well, right? And maybe have a night routine with the kid, lie down with them, right? Lie down next to them for
Hmm.
a half hour, 45 minutes so that they calm down. And then you know that they're safe, and then you can go to bed. Louise says, agree, the more space we create, the more things work themselves out. Spaciousness is the key.
Yes.
I wanted to go back to Christina's all that creation can it be now, the juice for what you are manifesting with an energy that is permanently renewed. So that is the consciousness that is flowing through continuously. Energy that is permanently renewed is that energy, that high vibrational frequency. That is what is the juice for manifesting. I think she's translating on Google Translate because she speaks Spanish.
Ah, okay.
So you have to kind of like know that she's translating.
I do not speak Spanish, but I speak French, so I can understand how that would like flip the gears in the head a little bit. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting statement and question. To go back to what you were saying, Punam, about vibration and having fully admitted, I've experimented with drugs. I've had my fun back when I was younger. I've even done ayahuasca ceremonies, and the understanding of vibration that I've gotten from my experiences.
What is that? Ayahuasca?
Ayahuasca,
Thank
Peruvian.
you. Hmm.
Um, okay, here's a whole topic. Ayahuasca is the living plant form that the God molecule that people like to call DMT is from. So dimethyl something trichloride. I forget what it's spelled or what the whole chemical name for it. A lot of people who have not done ayahuasca think it's just another hallucinogen like LSD. There's a big difference between pharmaceutical chemical and plant information in my understanding and in my personal experience. Ayahuasca is something that gives you access to regions that are unlocked by your pineal gland and by your higher brain functions that can only be accessed through raising your vibration. And usually people, when they do ceremonies, it's all night, it's in the dark because the darkness triggers us to go inside. There's Taoist internal alchemy things that I've studied that talk about this. Which is why meditating in the dark is really, really important to understand how to feel your body and how to go inside a little bit more consciously. So ayahuasca is a plant medicine. It's a lot like a lot of people are compare it to psilocybin or magic mushrooms in terms of the health benefits for mental health and how it helps purge old neural pathways of stress and trauma, and how it actually fosters building new healthy neural pathways based on a completely clean slate. So yeah, that's the short version. That's the short version. The shamanistic ceremonies that I did a few years ago, basically showed me that it's the same energy as what I've encountered doing standing state qigong and bagua circle walking. That the connection to the physical body is the most important thing that I've learned to do, because when I was in ceremony, instead of needing to throw up, I just processed everything inside my own body and was able to move through everything that was coming up consciously in a controlled fashion, even though it was a very intense experience. And again, there's a lot of talk about ayahuasca, but if you are going inside and you are doing your work, it is an interesting experience, but it's not necessary. if you're going inside and you're doing your work.
Perfectly said. That's why inhabiting the body is a portal, like the primary portal that Eckhart talks about, because the inner body is the pathway, like the conduit to the unmanifested, what we say God.
Yep.
So if you want to experience our true nature, which is our alignment with inner beingness, then that chi, that prana, experiencing it to the highest state is what is needed.
Yep.
So Dra is asking for the link to the music.
I already gave it to her.
Thank you so
Or,
much, Eileen.
I'm not sure. Sorry.
Sujata says a child of a friend said that the child is doing much better since Corona lockdown, focusing much better, less anxious. So it seems the autistic children pick up on vibrations around more acutely. So then that says that maybe the home environment is very, like the jitteriness is there in the home environment. So one is sage burning. I don't know where you're located, but like I went to Colorado and the one thing that I got is pure sage that you can actually burn. So um, you can burn sage throughout your house, or if you know of anybody that can do a cleansing of your home, the energies of your home, that's one of the things that you can try is energy cleansing of the home, right? And this is very Ayurvedic. I know in yoga they talk about um, the 5 element balancing, right? So our body is made of 5 elements, which is water, air, fire, air, water, fire, ether, earth. 5 elements. So it always needs to be balanced. These 5 elements, our body needs to, and that's what yoga is about, the integration of balancing all these elements. It almost is like you're totally in integration with how the cosmos is moving, how the planets are moving, planetary movements are going through, right? The planets and the stars, the galactic movements. So you can also try that with your child, is the 5 elements, like balance their 5 elements, bathe them. Water, I think balancing the water element is taking a bath or let them swim, like let them have their body immersed in water, let them have air, so take them outside. You yourself, you can be outside, let them have earth, which is barefoot, right, Eileen? Walk barefoot on earth, like grass or dirt. Let them walk barefoot. Fire is you can eat black pepper. That's fire. So you can do some of it through diet, right?
Yep.
The fire element. And I think autistic is because they're jittery. That shows like air and fire is a lot in that person, like they already have fire in them, so they need to be earthed down. I'm very earthy, like I'm very, that's why the heaviness is down below in my body, like very earthy body. uh, so I need fire, I need a lot of air, fire, and the other elements um, in to balance myself out. Lakshmi gave some description of your DMT. Is
Yeah.
a hallucinogenic that
Dimethyl.
occurs in
Yep.
many plants, and it is also referred to as the spirit molecule due to the intense psychedelic experience.
I've never done LSD. I've never.
He tried it once because people tend to ask him questions.
Mhm.
So he said, when people ask me questions, I want to, I mean, if I don't experience it, how am I going to answer if drugs are good or not? But he says, and that's what I feel, the stillness is such a joy by itself. I don't have any interest that, okay, I want to drink alcohol or I want to like change my innate nature by any other substance. Maybe someday when I'm 80, 90, I'll try pot or something. For right now, I'm okay without any drugs, any chemicals.
Yep. Yep.
Um, what time is it? Do we have some more time? Yeah, we have some a little bit more time. One of the things that I noticed, so Monday we had another Q&A on the 2020 Conscious Manifestation course. I hope Sujata got her answer on the visualization. I don't know at what time she joined this Facebook Q&A. Sujata, we spoke about a little bit more expounding on your visualization technique. Why not to visualize too much or focus on it?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so it was so strange that the two people that asked questions, and Eckhart has become that way, right? That you ask him a question, he takes 45 minutes to answer the question. And that Q&A is supposed to be an hour long. So all he can fit is two questions. And he went an hour and a half. He didn't even finish at the hour. It was strange that both people talked about suffering. There is a question here, Heather. Some people who have been traumatized need to reset their brains.
Yep. Yep.
Perfect segue, since we are talking about suffering, right? I don't know why both questions, like even though they were posed differently,
Mm-hmm.
one person said that they want to, so they must be doing the 2020 and they're saying DMT isn't for everybody. So one person wanted to do conscious manifestation, but she said that she was always afraid of what comes up for her is um, thoughts of suffering, like I'm going to lose one of my family members. I got the response that was posted. It was I spoke about it just now, Sujata, at the beginning of the Facebook. Uh, when I post the recording, then if you can please watch it because it was for you on the visualization, right? Expounding on the visualization, why you would not focus on visualization. We spoke about it at the beginning. So anyway, let's go back to the suffering because it talks about the traumatized need to reset their brains. This person was saying that they were trying to manifest, but what would come up for them is like thoughts of suffering. That, oh, I mean, if I go manifest something, maybe I'll get hurt, or my family members, I'll lose a family member, and I'm too scared of that, so I don't want to consciously. You know how the self-talk starts in the head.
My
So
jumps right in.
that that's what this person was saying. Then following her, another person asked another question, and even he said the same thing, that there was a lot of drug addiction and addiction in his family, and because of that his self-talk in his head is fearful thoughts and the thoughts of like suffering. I love the fact that he said that suffering feels so familiar,
Mm-hmm. Yes. Right.
that he wants to stay in the suffering, right? And I thought that was like a profound wisdom. I mean, it just came out of his mouth as though he was asking question,
Yep.
but he was explaining to Eckhart that to him suffering feels familiar, but to me that was a profound wisdom, that that's why so many people want to remain in their victim story and their suffering, because it is so familiar, so seductive, right? The ego is always alive with the suffering story, and that's why trauma is a very easy way to latch on to the victim story.
Yep.
Go ahead, Kelly, I'll let you speak to it. Thank you.
Yeah. From my own experience in terms of the relationship that I was in where I got married, and then divorced, it was because the pattern was so familiar. And the incredible gift that I gave myself by having such a thorough experience for 11 years and constantly seeing the pattern come up, constantly witnessing the pattern, going, oh, we need to stop this, and then stopping it for a little while, and things would change, and then they would slide backwards. And how much I learned about how my monkey mind, how sneaky my shadow, my ego, and my fear-based programming was to hook me back into that pattern, and how much will and strength it actually took to stop it and to so that it would burn itself out and so that I could step out of that space. And it's absolutely true. The impact of trauma, the impact of patterns when we are children cannot be underestimated. And it does become like an addiction. It's an emotional addiction. It's an energetic addiction. It's an internal dialogue addiction. You get used to, and you normalize that internal dialogue, and you make your home there, and you become experience. And that's what I had to look at in terms of stopping myself and, facing my pattern and stepping out of it and getting divorced and stepping out of that old space of, especially with relationships, having that codependency and that caretaking pattern that I had, and about how my best intentions of supporting someone else and helping someone else also worked against me, because I was not aware how my shadow and how my monkey mind used my authentic desire to help someone against me, to hook me into the pattern of helping and caretaking and being codependent. And I know now, looking back, and that was
Kelly's image froze for me, Eileen. It froze for you too?
Yes.
Okay.
We're not having storms here tonight, but we did last night and the night before.
How did your kids do with the storms?
Okay. Bad. Oh, there he is.
Are you back?
what happened. I was getting too sparkly or something. I don't know.
You were talking about that your marriage of, is it 11 years?
Well, it was a relationship of 11 years. We were barely married 6 months.
Oh wow. Okay.
And it was one of those events where it was a band-aid on the situation, on the patterns, to try and do something else. And we'd been in a good place, so we thought, oh hey, wow, okay, we've gotten through this. And well, no, we didn't, because our both of us had such synergistic patterns that it was really hard to stop them. And
so
understanding
you did the instead of, where Eckhart says accept the situation, change it, or leave, you actually left, separated. Yep. This time. Okay.
Yes. Yep. It was seeing and feeling in the other person in the relationship how synergistic our patterns were, and how we needed to not be together, just not be together. As much as we had these moments of, profound alignment, of joy, and we had a lot of things in common, it was just one of those things where realizing that what I wanted out of life and what she wanted out of life, just I wanted to stop the patterns, and I had to put my foot down and I left. I decided that it was not working. And at first we had a really good conversation, and then it was one of those things of just watching the triggers start to cascade, and then everything sort of imploded, and um, she moved out right away, and it was just sort of, yeah, it was a very profound experience of seeing consciously, like physically palpable experiences of someone's, my own patterns trying to literally reach out through me. Like, it was literally feeling as if the energy of my own pattern was trying to reach out and hold on to my ex-wife. And that's when I went, okay, all right, I'm done. I can't do it. Like, nope, that's, yeah. It was so loud that I literally had nothing left, where I was just like, we cannot do this anymore, period. There's nothing left.
So Heather says there's much suffering in this world for everybody in their own way. Some suffer more than others. Some benefit more from the idea of resetting. I think it's the best time to start talking about these taboo subjects. What amazing things we could uncover within if we have uh, safe spaces to experience our darkest parts of ourselves. We are powerful beings, and it's time to become more aware. Suffering is inevitable. From time to time, we grow through our darkness. I wouldn't know these insights if I myself hadn't experimented magic mushrooms. I think you guys are doing good talking about the healing effects of meditation and our abilities to change for the better. Thank you, Heather. I love the fact that one of the things that came up in the last meditation, right? I was trying to bring up, there was a person that asked a question, and I was bringing up the fact that the situation was more about why a man may think they're superior than a woman, right? And I brought up the Adam and Eve story, which we discussed last week as well.
Right.
That maybe that biblical story, kind of like you're made out of the rib of a man, already puts a woman in a inferior position, right? So Yindra was saying, why are y'all discussing this? Why do you have to discuss it, right? Because if Eckhart says disidentify, that's a thought, right? I am less than a man is just a thought.
Yep.
So if we know we need to disidentify ourselves from the thought,
Yep.
that's all. The liberation is in the disidentification, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So why are we discussing it? And going back to Heather's, whatever Heather has written, the fact that we discuss it, if we can see the source of why am I angry at Eileen at this moment, I'm angry at Eileen at this moment, not because of Eileen, but because at 8 years of age, somebody wore a blue shirt and they traumatized me.
Yep. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And that's coming up now. So to know why the pattern is coming up, and these are very subtle, at our energy, their memories that written into our energetic level. So we are not even going to see the thought that I'm a woman. I'm in the physical form. Actually, at the energy level, there is no male, female. It's the physical form that makes us male,
That's
female, right? At the
Yep.
level of prana chi, we are just vibrational energy.
Yep.
So there's no masculine, feminine in there. The
Yep.
feminine, masculine is off the physical body, but I just can't disidentify. If I can look at the source of why I have that limiting belief, that thought, or why do I identify with the victim story, that I have nothing else in my life. Because of my victim story, now I've manifested lack of funds. So I'm living in very impoverished conditions. Because of my victim story, now I don't have very much. I'm sickly, right? They've manifested even because they've been up in their head with
Yep. Yep.
the Eckhart talks about his stepmom being paranoid schizophrenic. You being paranoid schizophrenic now, everybody is the enemy of the state, kind of paranoid, right? Like he says his stepmom used to say the FBI is watching me, or whoever is watching me, kind of paranoid, right?
Right.
So
Right.
you're on your in your head so much now, you've become sickly. You've not inhabited your body.
Yep.
And so it is very much necessary that we actually find the source of why the resistance is coming up. Go ahead, Kelly. This was my input. Why do you discuss it? Is the reason why we discuss it is to know the source of why we are actually having this resistance pattern right now in this moment.
Yeah. In order to go inside and to heal, a person needs to understand their cultural programming, their family programming, and their personal choice programming in terms of why they've chosen the internal dialogue that they have. That's been my experience. Understanding the kind of culture that we are in and the history of the culture that you were born in and then are also living in is really important, because sometimes they will have conflicting worldviews or conflicting programs that cause conflict in people, that distract people from going inside and actually seeing that the conflict that they feel is not their own, it is just the external world imposing upon themselves. It's that the energy. Talking about the whole reality that we live in a patriarchal society, that the whole world is generally working at it, pulling itself out of the patriarchal illusion, is really important, because a person needs to understand what kind of energy they are on the receiving end of. The whole global consciousness, the country consciousness that you are in, the energy that you're on the receiving end of is super, super important, because that will give you clues to why you are having that internal dialogue, why you are associating with a thought pattern, why you are associating with the limiting energy, and why you are letting it reside in your body, in your energy field, and why you are holding on to it and limiting yourself by holding on to and associating with a limited perception of reality. That's a whole ball of wax talking about, why are we talking about, patriarchal society or a woman being less than a man? Because, yeah, as you said, Poonam, at an energetic level, there is no difference. Absolutely no difference. Everyone has electrons. Everyone's electrons and atoms and molecules are all connected with energy, and everything vibrates. We're all stardust. It's the same thing. It does not matter what your external appearance happens to be. Everyone is the same energetically. We all have to deal with the energetic imposition of limiting belief structures. And that is why understanding our thoughts and our thought patterns is so important, because that gives us clues to why we think the way that we do, or why we get triggered, and why we have these emotional patterns that we do.
Heather says society has lied to us and distorted our ideas of ourselves. And when we reset, we begin to actually think for ourselves. And I think reset, she means when that presence power develops. That's the magic of it. We unveil the mask and see the truth of ourselves. We are simply consciousness, not our thoughts, not our bodies.
Yep.
Our brains are simply tools to be programmed. Choose wisely when you allow yourself to be exposed to, for that will become your reality. Yes,
Yep.
we talk about our thoughts becoming a reality. And that's why, Kelly has been here for so many weeks. Qigong is a very good tool, just like yoga is a tool.
Yep.
Meditation is a tool. Breath work is a tool. Tai Chi is a tool. I will talk to you about something, Kelly, offline. I want to actually pay like for 10 memberships
Oh,
or
okay.
10 people or so, and see if 10 people join your classes. Like you can
Okay.
offer it on our group page.
Oh, cool.
And then we'd see the participation from that, right? let's
Fantastic.
give them
Yeah.
10 classes for free, but I might do a PayPal or something to you,
Sure.
pay
Great.
you for it. Okay.
Okay.
So thank you so much. I think it's been a good hour, right?
Yep. Yep.
Eileen, you have any questions? Our amazing moderator?
Nothing.
She's just chilling.
It's been a long day.
Go to
Really,
bed. She's in East Coast, Eastern time zone, so she's
okay.
an hour later, so it's almost bedtime for her. So I'm really, really grateful, Eileen, that you do this
I know.
every week
Yeah,
for us.
thank you
That so heartfelt
Thank you. I'm
gratitude.
very grateful.
Thank you. It was amazing, Kelly.
Oh.
Incredible experience, exhilarating experience, and thank you so much to everyone that contributed their wisdom. Y'all have been incredibly amazing as well.
Questions, everyone.
Many blessings, and in a few weeks, I'll message you again, and maybe in a couple of weeks you can join us again, Kelly. Is that good?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'm good.
Be
Yep.
happy with that? Okay. Fantastic. See y'all. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Much love, many blessings. Take care.
Right.
Thank you. Bye. Good night.